The Baskerville family's hound, named Van Baskerville, was the most loyal hound to his family and his father, but was betrayed and framed by them for connecting with the demon clan, and was killed by them. Before his execution, he decided if he ever get to live again, he will get his revenge. After that, he opened his eyes and doesn't understand where he is, but his body feels heavy. He thinks he is in hell, as in the Grand Estate odd Baskerville family. All the children are gathered into their beds, and all of them are crying. Then this man named Patriarch Hugo Lev from Baskerville family comes in, as he walks around the children and says that there aren't any special kids here, and there is only trash are gathered here. Then he sees Van, and says this one is quieter than the other kids. He tells his workers to move the children to the Cradle of Swords. Van knows that the main culprit for his framing and execution in his previous life was this man, Hugo Le. He is certain now that he has lapsed back to when he was a baby, as in his previous life he lived as a hound, who was born in an illegitimate family and received really hard training in a poor environment. As hounds devote their lives to the missions, they take care of all kinds of dirty work, and everything is done to make Baskerville the best of the 7 families. He was loyal to his family to get acknowledged by them and also from Hugo. 10 years ago, when the demonic realm was opened, the fight between humans and demons was won by humans, and the reward given to the loyal hound was that they were taken down. The only reason he was executed was that the hound knew too much. He will never live like that again. He wants to take his revenge but can't do anything with his newborn baby's body. As he needs to get stronger to get his revenge, getting moved to the Cradle of Swords will be a good opportunity for him to get stronger. Cradle of Sword is a place where the children born into the Baskerville family have to go through this trail. The children get thrown into a maze of swords, and after going through that, they go to the Styx River, where they get examined for their talent. This Styx River is a legendary river that turns the bodies of children into iron, but there is a limit to how much it can affect the children. This is how they know their talent. For them to get to the river, they need to go through the wall of blades. Van comes out of them, as he thinks in his previous life he and his sibling couldn't receive this effect, but this time he will get it done. Then he jumps into the river and tries to stay there as long as possible, as the water is getting into his body through his cuts. He then says he has to endure this as long as possible. Outside, everyone is surprised to see this, and they think he will die if he stays underwater any longer. They need to get him out. Hugo is loving this. He asked his butler how much time has passed since he got in the river. He says 7 minutes. Hugo thinks he might die and asks him to get out. Van goes that he will not come out this easily as he needs to absorb as much as he can till the end. But he couldn't hold any longer as he was going to drown. But Hugo pulls him out and says, "Look at this kid." Hugo asks for the name of this child, and his butler tells him it's Van Baskerville. Hugo gets excited as he thinks a greedy son for power has been born. Van says, "Enjoy this time, Hugo, as much as you can." Van needs to grow stronger and sharpen his skills silently, and when the time comes, he will kill his masters and the Baskerville family will vanish in history at his hands. Van was Hugo's illegitimate son. At the age of 8 years old, he was really talented, and everyone called him a genius, but he was ordinary in his family. At 20 years old, he took on missions like assassinations and conquests. At 29 years of age, he felt he had reached his limit in swordsmanship compared to the direct lineage. At 30 years old, the gate of the demonic realm opens and the demon invasion begins. At 35, he suffers through the era of destruction and bloodshed of monsters left and right. At 39, the war ends and humans win. And at 40, for his loyalty, he is rewarded with defamation and false accusations and killed him. Van wakes up and finds himself in a nursery, which means he has successfully absorbed the Styx River. He starts to crawl out of his bed, and then a lady comes in with a box saying why Madam wants to give this present and puts it on his bed. In the box there are 2 deadly mambas. Van thinks someone sent these snakes to assassinate him. As there are only a few people who are called madams, they must have wanted to reduce the competition. The mambas attack him, but Van grabs them with both hands and says he will bring down this entire Baskerville family with these 2 hands and kill these snakes. The next day, workers are shocked to see that, as they see Van sleeping peacefully with dead vipers next to him. 2 officers come in and say that the workers who were working that night shift were executed, but the reason for the viper's appearance is unknown. But this young hound only knew the truth about what happened that night. After that, 8 years later, students were in a class where they were taught about the levels of swordsmanship. If you cannot yet defuse your mana with the sword, you are considered a sword beginner, and if you can infuse it, you are called a sword expert. But when your blade emits mana in liquid form, you are called a sword graduate. Last but not least, the form where the aura is solid and can freely be changed is called the sword master. The strongest of the Baskerville family is Sir Hugo, who is at the level. Van thinks Hugo was already a sword master, as he needs to regain his powers before the coming-of-age ceremony. He lost himself in his thoughts, thinking how many years he needs to kill Hugo. 3 students push him to the corner and ask him if they have heard some rumors about him, as he sat in the Styx River for 7 minutes and killed 2 vipers when he was a baby. Van knows about these 3 as they were the ones who stabbed him during defamation when he was running. They are known as Hugo le Baskerville's Trident. Van thinks he needs to pit them in their place, as they will be a real pain for him in the next 10 years. He points a dagger towards him and tells him that if they stay in the Styx River for 6 minutes, their bodies become steel, and if they stab him, it wouldn't hurt him. One brother comes from behind and puts his hand on his to stop him from breathing and sees if he can truly hold his breath for 7 minutes. And if he does, he will eat his own hand. Van gets along with them, and 1 minute later he is still holding up. They ask him to let him go, then suddenly Van bites his hand. They ask him what he is doing, and he tells them they said he would eat his hand. They tell Van they are not scared, but the 3rd brother says he is and starts crying. As they were about to leave, Van told them where they thought they were going. One brother pulled a dagger and hit Van in the stomach, but Van's body really had become iron. He grabbed his hand and told them to keep playing till the very end with a senile look on his face. They get scared and think the rumors are actually true. Then Van punches him in the face. The other 2 brothers are shocked to see their brother lying on the floor. The next one comes in and Van throws a kick, and they fall down crying. He tells them not to be scared of him, and they will get better soon after they get treated by the priest. But he won't let them leave this room and picks up their dagger and tells them he will be generous today and will let one of you leave right now, but which brother will leave they have to decide by themselves. He throws the dagger towards them and tells them to choose quickly as one of you should get to live. They started looking at each other with killing looks, and Van thinks that the Triton of Baskerville is going to split now. At the office, the butler is giving the report to the patriarch about the bloody situation with the Moore clan in the ruby mines, as they are claiming this mine is their territory. The patriarch tells him an opportunity will come to discuss that matter if there is anything else. He tells him Van has scored the highest marks in the written exam. Hugo is happy to hear this, and another matter he has to inform him of is that recently there has been a big fight among the young masters. Hugo asks him how many have died. The butler tells him there are no casualties, but the Master Hybero's teeth are completely damaged, Mid-Libero's jaw has been smashed in, and lastly, Master Mobero's left index finger has been cut off, as they have recovered their health since being treated by the priest. But the psychological damage done seems really significant. Hygo tells him they wouldn't fight among themselves as they are so close to each other, but the butler tells him the person who did this to them is the young Master Van, the one who scored the highest score in the written exam. Hugo is shocked to hear this. They call Vicar in the room, and Hugo tells him he has grown a lot. It's been a while since they saw each other. Hugo asks him about the incident, and he tells him they are fine as they were recovered by the priest. Hugo tells him he is not talking about physical damage. He is talking about the damage he caused to their relationship. Since that day, they have been eating separately and acting like they don't know each other, as their combination trick was quite unique, but you have completely torn their relationship apart. Hugo tells him, "Don't you think this was wrong?" Van tells Hugo, "How can a strong person be wrong?" with a sinister look on his face. Hugo tells him that his brother came in ahead of him and said that they would forgive him, yet you don't feel an ounce of guilt at all. Van tells him they forgave him. Van thinks of a memory before his regression. The youngest daughter of a family who was ruined by the Baskerville clan comes to Hugo and tells him that she forgives him and offers a mass. Hugo's response to her after the mass was that he believes that forgiveness is just an excuse for the weak who cannot seek revenge due to the lack of their strength, and only the strong will reign supreme as weakness is a sin. Hugo tells him he understands the family motto very well. Hugo tells Barrymore, his butler, to let the kid have any snack he wants from the food storage. Van asks if he will have a chocolate then, and as he is leaving, Hugo calls him, "Listen, my son, try to do well in the interim evaluation and don't lose to the direct descendants. Van will give you an annoyed look if you say yes, Lord." He takes him to the storage where they store the best quality chocolates. He tells him he doesn't want anything that's processed, he needs only the beans, which have a rich aroma. They are shocked to hear this, and they give him the beans. Van thinks to himself that he must love chocolates. He tells them there is no need to process them. He will take them as they are. Butler thinks he has the peculiar taste. Van will use these bloody beans during the practical exams, which are in 5 days. On that day, he will cause a catastrophe that has never happened in the Baskerville clan before. In this world of the Baskerville family, referred to as the Berserker family, they put their children through an early education. When they are able to take their first steps, they run up a steep mountain for their basic stamina, and when it's time for their sleep to adjust to tough environments, they sleep with a monster corpse. After that, they are 8 years old, and these young hounds are ready to start their deadly evaluation. That's why this family is called the Berserker family. Today is the practical evaluation and survival exam. They are all gathered at the mountain as their instructor, named Shadow Dog, tells them that they need to survive a month here in these mountains and need to hunt strong and large mountain lions. The points for surviving the exam are 10 points, and if they survive without becoming disabled, then it's 30 points. If they fail other young hounds and survive, then it's 50 points, and if they survive after defeating a monster, then it's 70 points. And lastly, if they fulfill all the conditions listed above, they will get 90 points. Additionally, if they steal the badge of another hound, they will receive their points as well. If they die here, they will receive 0 points, as there are no 100 points here. He advises them not to exit the designated area, as this Nora Mountain is a restricted area with many undiscovered things, and tells them to move within the subjected area because during the exam, shadow dogs will be hiding and grading you. Students see Van, as the rumors say he stayed in the Styx River for 7 minutes and also killed vipers. Having received full marks in theory exams, they will see if he is any good during this practical exam. Van thinks it's been a while since he's been to this mountain. The instructor tells them that at the sound of the bell, their exam will begin as they all start running and occupy the advantageous area for themselves. The instructor says so, it has begun. As in this exam, killing each other is not encouraged, but it is not prohibited. If they kill someone, it will reduce their points, so everyone tries not to kill each other. Van goes to that area, and the shadow dog sees him. He thinks he might be a genius in disguise since childhood, and he is looking forward to seeing what he does in this exam. Van goes under a tree and thinks this will be a great spot for him. Now that he has decided where he will be living, he says he should relax and take a break. Shadow Dog is surprised to hear him as he is going to take a break, as other students are fighting with monsters and other students, but Van is just relaxing. Shadow Dog is unimpressed seeing him only relax for a few days, as he only hunts for food or gathers equipment. He thinks rumors about him being a genius might be fake, and the Shadow Dog thinks he is going to hide, so there is no need to observe him, so he leaves. Van senses him leaving as he planned. Camping outside reminds him of the old days. He says now that the one interfering with this plan is gone, he shall start his hunt now. After a few days, Van goes into the restricted area, as during his soldier days this area wasn't restricted. Then he sees the burned roots of the tree, and he is sure that must be a hellhound. In his scouting days, he found them annoying, but seeing him now makes him happy. These are the lookout monsters who swallowed the hellfires. Van was barely able to take down one hound alone at the age of 18 in his past life. However, now he knows a way where a child can take down a hellhound. As he charges towards him, hellhounds' first weakness is that they can only move in straight lines. It's difficult for them to change directions quickly. Their second weakness is that they can't stand against water. Even if it's a small amount, it slows them drastically. Hellhound charges onto Van with his mouth open. Van throws a seed in this mouth, which makes him fall down as this chocolate is poison for them. And when it comes to bloody beans with a rich aroma, it can paralyze these dogs instantly. Van says even the hellhound can defeat chocolate. He attacks his kidney and kills the dog. When they catch monsters, an energy like XP flows into their bodies, making them stronger. Now that Van's sword feels lighter than before, he thinks he will be able to catch up to where he was before his regression. He gets happy thinking about what kind of face Hugo will make when a kid brings the body of B+ rank, and he has also decided on the reward he wants, a biggest reward, which he has never dreamed of asking for in his past life. As he was about to take his head, other hellhounds came back, as they must have heard the screams of this one. He cuts his head off and says he will kill them too as he has a lot of beans left, but the dog gets scared and doesn't move an inch with their heads down. Van thinks these dogs never get scared. Then he looks back and sees a 3-headed dog named Cerberus with blue flames coming out of his mouth. This is an A+ ranking monster. Its habitat is in the 7th ridge, but why is he here on the 1st ridge? Van sees that he is bleeding. Looking closely, It also has multiple arrows stuck in this body, and few other injuries as well, as someone was trying to hunt him. He remembers about the barbarian tribes in this territory across the mountain. It must have came down here to get away from them. Now this is Van Chance, an injured A+ rank monster in front of him. He need to kill it no matter what happens. Van shows his true power. He have been hiding his power back at the household. He has already reached a high level of expertise, which is as a sword expert. He had already reached the level that other hounds would attain when they become adults. He takes his sword and charges towards the Cerberus and cuts his head. He thinks he can do it. An injured Cerberus is doable for him. Before Van regression he has refined his sword skills, and also his body had been strengthened by the river Styx. Now all of his weapons Van possess are working well against the Cerberus. That's what he thought the moment he let his guard down. Cerberus uses his claws, breaks his swords, and falls on the ground bleeding. After few moments he wakes up lying against the tree, and sees that he was unconscious after Cerberus attacked him. He feel pain in his right arm. He sees his arm and sees the cut, thinks this must be the effect of Styx River, or otherwise his arm would have been ripped out. Cerberus charges towards him. He dodges the attack, cause he won't be able to take another hit. Now an experienced hunter must find the best way out of this situation, which is to run towards the safe area. He started running and Cerberus kept following him. Van wants to pass the iron fence and goes to the place where he set up his camp. If he gets caught before that he will die. He jumps over the fence and Cerberus breaks through the fence. Van sees his campsite just a little further then. The Cerberus is right behind him. He was about to get caught. He jumps and the Cerberus steps on the trap. Van is happy to see his trap works, but the Cerberus one head is still alive. Van picks up a wooden spear and throws it at the Cerberus. It hit him and Van starts counting 1, 2. Cerberus comes towards Van and exactly after 7 steps he falls on the ground. Van is relieved. Van says the rumors were true. The wooden spear he threw wasn't a regular wooden spear. It is laced with the bloody mamba's venomous fangs. It won't let you walk more than 7 steps once bitten by them. Van can feel the energy of Cerberus flowing into his body. All 3 heads are dead now. Van is worried how he is going to take it back. The cause of death will be obvious and the guardian knight saw him carve the wooden spear, so he will be his witness. But first Van wants to do something, as these Cerberus are the gatekeepers that protect their territories, so there must have been a dungeon nearby where you can find treasure. Now the gatekeeper is gone, the dungeon must be empty. Van puts the remains and blood of Cerberus on his clothes, which will keep the small monsters away from him. He backtracks the footprints and droll of Cerberus and found the dungeon. Van remembers before his regression coming here, as it will be discovered in another 10 years, but it's going to be empty. But right now Van can sense mana under the rotten surface. He gets excited thinking what kind of treasure will he found under there, and goes inside the dungeon and sees a light coming from the entrance of the dungeon. He goes inside and sees a big ruby shining crystal, which is imbued with mana. Van goes close to it and sees a skeleton, which means someone was here before him. Van sees his injuries and dry blood, which means he has been dead for quite a while. He picks up a letter and sees the handwriting and thinks he must be from Baskerville. In the letter he says he is writing this for the future generations do not make the same mistake like he did. This stone chamber has been talked about as legend in the family, so him and his brother Abel coincidentally came across this place and raided the dungeon and passed through countless trails. They killed many monsters and finally arrives at the chamber to find the final assignment of this place. That assignment took a long time of 3 years, which says when entering it's 1, but once inside it's 2, when leaving it's 1. Him and his brother contemplated over this text forever and finally comes to the conclusion him and his twin brother was 1 in their mother's womb but were separated into 2 when given birth. In other words, to get the treasure they need to become 1 again, which means only one of them can leave with the treasure. After a fierce battle he ended up killing his brother, but still there was no change. In their theory they definitely went from 2 to 1, so why they couldn't get the treasure. Filled with guilt of killing his own brother, he decided to leave the place and wanted to tell anyone who come here to leave this place immediately. Van says he came all the way here facing countless challenges and left with nothing, but he doesn't have a twin. Van thinks the assignment is the same for both him and for the cane, which means he might have misinterpreted the text. Van starts thinking as there is no dungeon that cannot be defeated. He looks at the skeleton and starts laughing, which he has figured out the text. Van says these 2 brothers were just unlucky because they were 2 and Coulson solved the problem because they were hindered by a fixed idea. As the answer to this riddle lies inside the dungeon, as Van is the only one entering through the dark passageway, but as soon the ruby light casts a shadow on him, he becomes 2. and he breaks the ruby crystal as the answer to the riddle is shadow. After breaking the crystal, a light appears in front of him and creates a sword. Van gets excited seeing this and thinks this is the relic of the Devil's Den, and the text says only those with the blood of Baskerville's family will be able to take Beelzebub. Van remembers something seen in illustration of picture book in his childhood, where the gluttonous fly named Beelzebub, an unprecedented great monster that invaded the continent in the old legends, the Devil's holy constellation, also known as the Seven Calamities. In order to stop these 7 calamities, the 7 families stepped up to take on the Devil's holy constellation each. The Devil's constellation that the first Baskerville patriarch fought was the gluttony Beelzebub, and the remains of the Beelzebub was stored in the lands of Baskerville, and Beelzebub's demonic energy was said to have lured monster. It was an old legend that no one believes now. However, that legend was true, and this blade was taken later by the demon clans, which resulted in countless of deaths among humans on the battlefield in his previous life. But it won't happen in this life as it's his now. He tries to take out the sword, but it goes into his hand and comes out from the back of his hand as a blade. Van gets really excited and wonders how much stronger will he become in this life, as now he has the Beelzebub, a blade made from the corpse of a Devil's holy constellation. Van thinks he should head back now as there is nothing else for him to obtain. Suddenly he starts feeling dizzy from hungriness and goes on his knees. The sword wants to eat. He comes out of the dungeon and starts feeling voracious hunger in his stomach. The sword goes to the left side and says it smells something delicious. Van sees the hellhound he killed earlier. The sword starts absorbing the blood of the hellhound. Van insides are reverting back to the normal. Van thinks it must be starving for a long time. He has no idea how much he has to feed him in order to console his eating disorder. After drinking it, a files pop-up appears with 1 slot having hellhound hemorrhage, and second, third are empty. Van thinks this must be Beelzebub's inherent ability. Beelzebub, the gluttonous fly, has the ability to turn the opponent's power into his own. Since the absorption amount is nearly infinite, countless people have said to lost their abilities and turned obsolete. Van thinks due to high being hazardous, he can only steal up to 3 abilities now. The first one is Hellhound Hemorrhage, a skill that constantly pumps out the blood of the opponent even through the smallest of wounds. Van is happy as now he can steal abilities. Then suddenly Beelzebub goes crazy, wants to devour the Cerberus too. But Van tells him no, as if it's too damaged, how he would explain everything during the autopsy. Van slaps it, then sees 2 more skills. First is the Burn Injury Cerberus A+, and the second is the Hemorrhage Hellhound B+, and the third is High Speed Regeneration from the Rat F rank. Van thinks it must have consumed the rat underneath the Cerberus. It's a great achievement for Van to have acquired the burn injury kill from the Cerberus, since thermalgia is one of the worst pains a human could experience, which so be worse than the hellhound hemorrhage. Now he has done preparing the monsters to submit for the practical exams. He wants to wait until the exam is over, after the exam is completed, and the hounds who completed by returning to Baskerville. The students will receive a shield, sword as their rewards, which will be produced from the parts of the monster they hunted. Of course, the monsters Van hunted. The instructors were shocked to see them, and the report goes straight to Hugo. He asks his butler who caught them, Master Van from the 8-year-old class, who accidentally crossed over the restricted area during the exam and hunted the Cerberus of the A+ ranking rating. As the Cerberus is a high-ranking monster, even the knights tend to avoid them. Butler tells Hugo that it was wounded by the barbarian tribe, and also Van applied poison on his wooden spear. Hugo asks him what kind of poison is lethal enough to kill the Cerberus, and how was Van able to get it. Butler says there is nothing about the poison that's reported in the hunting journal, and when he asked Van, he said he is tired and goes to his dorm. Hugo smiling and thinks as that little brat is already so sly. According to him, information is power and power is your worth. Butler tells Hugo he is quite shocked to see that a master named Van and not La or La would be so talented. Hugo tells him he is not like other patriarchs. When he raises a hound, he doesn't discriminate them based on their blood. It doesn't matter where they comes from, as they have talent, he welcomes them. And which means that there can be mutts coming from royal bloodlines too. Butler thinks is he concerned about his second son who is preparing for the isolation training. Hugo tells him to bring Van. He comes in the room and Hugo tells him he heard that you hunted a Cerberus in your practical exams, how he was able to hunt that monster. Van tells him he put chocolate on his wooden spear. As for canned monsters, chocolate is a lethal poison, and ask him that's why he asked for it. He tells them yes. Hugo asked him why he didn't respond properly to the butler when he questioned him about it. Why is that? Van says that because he is not his master, since he belonged to the clan, so his master would be the one who is the clan master. Hugo tells him he has learned very well. As a reward, the corpse of the monster he wanted will belong to him, and additionally, if he has any wish, Hugo will grant it as he has scored the highest score in the exam. Van says he would like to gain access to the 10,000 epistle library. They are surprised hearing this. This library is one of the largest library in the empire, which is located deep within the heart of the Baskerville clan. Hugo tells him that only him and the second in command along with their direct descendants are allowed to it. Van tells him if it's not permitted, he will give up and will have to sneak in the library. Hugo tells him he can enter the library, and also he should read the Baskerville 6th technique, which is located within the 6th restricted zone deep inside the library. Van is surprised to hear this, as there has never been a case where Hugo would ever let an illegitimate child with the Van middle name was allowed to go past the 4th technique. Van pulls himself together, as Hugo's current level is the Baskerville 7th technique, and before his regression he was able to bear 9 of the fangs. Now Van haven't forgotten about the life of discrimination as an illegitimate child and will surpass Hugo in this lifetime. Because Van wants to obtain the greatest essence of Baskerville, which is the textbook of swordsmanship containing 3 teachings of the first patriarch, who was able to defeat the 7 great disasters, which he will get that from none other than Hugo le Baskerville. Hugo tells Van he is looking forward to see him. Van says thank you and will surpass his expectations. Van goes to the library, which is guarded by 2 guards. Finally, Van can use the books on swordsmanship that he wanted to desperately learn in his past life, cause no matter how much mana does an illegitimate child of Baskerville had, they can't learn any swordsmanship skill that is superior to the 4th technique. In order to ensure that the children who become hounds doesn't bare their teeth towards their master, Van finally comes across the book, which is chained up. Van thinks Hugo would have never given him this offer before his regression, as Hugo must be thinking, how could an 8-year-old memorize this in a day? He opened the lock, but before his regression he learnt the theory behind the 1st till 4th technique until he got sick of it, and was able to deduce and speculate the theory of the 5th technique. As he was reading the book, he remembers after drawing the 4th tooth he needed to stop the flow of mana, but couldn't. That's why he wasn't able to make the 5th tooth. As Baskerville sword's technique, depending on the stage of the sword, it's 1 tooth for the 1st technique, 2 teeth for the 2nd, and so on, and when they draw teeth, a special trait, a red sword energy, appears. But Van is not interested in the 6th technique, since the real reason is different why he came to this library, a stage that's higher than these techniques. He comes to the guard and tells them he is finished here. They are shocked to hear this, as Van been here for a few minutes. They tell Van to stay here longer and look around. Van tells them before he wants to read some other books, so don't worry about him and do what they need to do. He goes to find the book, which in his opinion is a hidden treasure. He found the book named Lurking Ambush. He gets excited when he found the book. This is the book on the basics of the 1st technique that the Baskerville family don't read. Due to ripped pages, it's a useless book, but Van knows the true value of this book. Before his regression in the Hound squad he was in, they had found a strange relic in the dungeon that was on the border of the Nora Mountain, which was a page from a swordsmanship textbook, but it was a single ripped page, a page with Baskerville's handwriting written on the page. Hugo found this remarkable and goes through the whole library to find the book that matches the page. That was the swordsmanship book, A Lurking Ambush. In this book, the Baskerville ancestors wrote a Baskerville 10th technique in it. Hugo goes crazy about the technique and released the hounds and found the remaining 6 pages that had the technique written on them. Hugo finds out that the remaining pages were hidden in the Great Sudden families. He declared war on other families and sent hounds to those who refused him. And after the sacrifices of so many hounds, all the missing pages were given to Hugo, and the reward for doing all of that was nothing. Van gets mad, says that it was a stupid life, due to which Hugo broke the 7th technique and achieved the 10th technique, and under was a pile of wasted corpses of Hound and their blood. Van will not let that happen in this life, as the Hound who reclaimed all those pages were Van, and he remembers all the contents that were written on those pages, and the reason he couldn't go beyond the 4th technique was because he didn't have access to the original book, and he starts reading the book as he thinks that it really does seem like a useless book. But when you use the missing pages and fill the blanks, that false, misleading information becomes into an amazing masterpiece of a book. Van wants to reclaim the power he had before his regression, and kept reading the book till the next day. Closes the book, as now he has memorized the book's contents from start to end. He doesn't feel the presence of the guards. He can't draw 10 teeth with a young body. But for now he might be able to achieve the 5th technique, which he can't in his previous life. He imagines a body in front of him, and uses the first technique, then the second, then third, and then the fourth. Remembers that his previous life was pathetic. After his hard work, he was able to maintain the highest level of graduator aura, but he wasn't able to learn a suitable sword technique, so the people of the direct bloodline were hostile towards him, and he couldn't go past the 5th stage because he was born as an illegitimate child. But in this life, he will never live like that, and finally was able to use the 5th technique. Van thinks he is still weak, but was able to draw the 5th tooth. Van gets so excited and was really happy as he was able to use the 5th technique. Now Vane Mana has reached a new max. This liquid aura is the sign of a graduator, which means he has gone from high-class sword expert to low-class graduator. In his previous life, it took him 30 years to achieve this, but couldn't believe he had managed to reach that level at only 8 years old. Graduators are completely different level from sword experts. The solid aura turns into liquid aura, and the density also increases. Allows it to be used more freely. Now his swordsmanship is also much better than before he regressed. Now he won't stop at the 5th technique, but a sword technique can reach up to 10 technique with endless possibilities. The piercing fang that he learned previously, although it was true that he could get stronger in a short period of time, but it has its limitations. But on the other hand, the lurking ambush, it's a perfect sword technique that can smoothly transition between offense and defensive with no growth limitations. If Vane put his mind to it, he might be able to challenge a mid-class graduator. The only problem Van has now is how much his power he can show it to Hugo. As he can't show too much or too less of his strength, he needs to give Hugo something to look forward so he have enough time to take everything he need. Van puts a magnifying glass in front of the book and burns the book, thinking Hugo will have a hard time reaching the 10th technique, which excludes Van, of course. Guards come in and ask Van what is he doing. He apologized to them as he accidentally left the magnifying glass around it and burned the book. Guards tell him it's nothing as it's the section of the useless books. Van tells them, aren't you guys are busy with the Morg clan regarding the ruby mines, and this small problem isn't worth their time. Guards tell him if he keeps it a secret, they will follow his lead. He says of course he will keep this secret between them and leaves the library. He comes to Hugo and he asks him what did he learn there. He tells them something warm, sharp, and yet soft, felt something like that. They both are surprised to hear this. Aura is the sign that you have officially entered the world of the swords. Even geniuses have to train without rest until they are 15 in order to reach the level of low-class sword expert. Hugo gets excited and asks Van to show his father what that is. Van said of course. The scene shifts to the arena where all the students gather and Van has a sword in this hand. Butler asks Hugo how is he planning to test out skills of young Master Van. He says he is planning to release a monster for him to deal with. All the gates closes and a monster comes in with chains and orc with risk rating of C. Students are surprised to see an orc and thinks it's an overkill to send an orc to deal with an 8-year-old. Hugo gives him the signal to release the monster. As he got released, he shouts loudly and charges towards Van. He easily cuts his one arm and one leg and falls to the ground. Orc must be feeling pain for the first time as his regeneration won't activate either. It's because a C-class monster won't be able to stop the hemorrhage caused by a B-class hellhound. Everyone is surprised to see this, but Hugo is calmly watching him. Van thinks he is waiting to see what he learned inside the library. Van says he will show him what he wants. Hugo and his butler are both surprised to see this, as takes out an aura blade and dashes towards the monster. Hugo is totally stunned seeing this. His butler tells Hugo that is certainly the aura of a low-class sword expert and congratulate him. They have just witnessed the birth of a genius. Hugo tells him is that what he thinks. Butler says among all the families, he don't think there will ever be a genius like this. Hugo stops him and tells him that something is wrong with the orc as they're known for their regeneration. As you can see, his bleeding isn't stopping, and tells him that he only won because the orc was much weaker. Van shouts at Hugo and says, "Father, is there anything stronger than the orc?" All the students are surprised to see this. However, Van thinks it's better he show off his power to a certain degree. If he gets lucky, his progress might get acknowledged, and he will be separated from Hugo. He could get dispatched to a remote area or get admitted to an academy. Hugo gets excited as an orc is not enough to satisfy his son. He tells the butler to bring the creature they captured during the barbarian raid for experiments. He says they have one left now. It must be starving now that it's been starving for a while. Students are surprised seeing this. Van is wowing as this is a troll which is 10 times bigger than him. Van asks Hugo can he start. He says yes, and they remove the chains, and they both charges towards each other. Troll punches Van, but he dodges the attack, comes behind, but doesn't attack. The students get frustrated as this was his chance, But Hugo says this was a good choice. These trolls have excellent regenerative power, so only the fatal attack are worth it. Which is why a plan is needed to hunt a troll. Van dodges all his attacks and Troll seems to get tired. If Van could use his full power, he could easily have defeated the monster, but he has to act. Van needs to make his win by using Troll's power against him and charges towards the troll and cuts it. Everyone thinks he will regenerate unless it's a fatal wound. Everyone thinks killing a troll with Baskerville first technique is too hard, and it is quite impressive he is able to accomplish despite being only 8 years old. Certainly, the Baskerville first technique is not enough to slice through his thick skin, but they would die from Beelzebub hemorrhage skill after a while, which would be meaningless. Hugo tells Van this is enough anymore, can be dangerous, so stop. Van tells Hugo he is almost done, and tells him he is near an epiphany, and he will give up if he can't kill it with his next attack. Hugo is surprised to see this and lets him fight. Now how much Van should oppose his power, which he has already decided. He wants to show a scenario where he has leveled up from an epiphany during the fight. Van gets ready to attack the troll, and thinking how will Hugo react after seeing this, he charges forward and cuts the troll's neck down. Butler and all the students are shocked seeing this. In iron-blooded sword clan Baskerville, a person's life is formulaically set. About at the age of 15, a hound can imbue the sword with mana. Normally, hounds attain the Baskerville first technique at that stage. But at this moment, first time in all of the Baskerville clan's history, an 8-year-old has attained the second technique, which is normally achieved at 18 years of age. Van gets happy smiling and says he finally did it. Hugo couldn't believe what he just saw. After that scene goes to a weeks later, where students are eating in the hall, and Van can't get used to the porridge they serve. After that incident, everyone has been distancing themselves from him. He gets happy seeing Hugo taken aback at the arena, for now Van has revealed that he can use second sword technique. But in reality, he is a low-rank graduator and can weakly perform the fifth technique of the Baskerville, and also with the skill he got from the troll he should be stronger than the average graduator. In slot 3 he has super speed regeneration troll skill. Van has been eating a lot more ever since he got Beelzebub. The three brother comes to him, Van sees them and tells them was the last time not enough. They just wanted to tell Van that he looked cool when he defeated the troll and the Cerberus. Van doesn't like that and almost spits his food. He doesn't understand what kind of trick they are pulling and thinks he should beat them. Then Butler comes in. Van is surprised to see him, and he tells Van to hurry up to the Patriarch's room. The scene moved to a royal palace where Hugo is meeting with the head of Morg clan named Adolf Morg. Adolf tells Hugo he hopes the annual event goes smoothly. Hugo tells him it always goes smoothly. Adolf says, but last time there were 2 seriously injured students from each family. Hugo say it was just a scratch as the Morg's children are quite the dramatic ones. Adolf gets irritated and says of course because they are noble and dignified, and they both started emitting their auras as they ready to fight. They were not always on bad terms. The Emperor once said that magic and swords are a complementary pair, due to which the Baskerville and Morgs began joint training sessions. Only the children between the age of 8 and 15 can participate, and it was carried out as a good atmosphere as an annual event. However, a problem occurred. There was a ruby mine in between Morg and Baskerville territory, which ended up being split over this conflict. As a result, the 2 patriarchs came to be on bad terms, but they have continued the joint training on the Emperor's command, due to which Patriarch's younger brother Adolf came in this stead. Adolf asks Hugo about the news that a supernova has arrived in his family. Hugo smilingly says it's not a big deal. Adolf is surprised to see Hugo reacting to a compliment about his child. Adolf tells Hugo they also have a genius among them named Camus and tells her to come in. She comes and Old tells Hugo she is his sister Respini's daughter. Adolf tells her to greet the Patriarch. She gets angry and asks Hugo, you are the one who stole our ruby mine, and tells him to give it back. Hugo gets mad as she called him thief. Adolf is flustered about Camus, and she says he was the saying that annoying Chinbird stole the ruby mine. Adolf tells Hugo this is just a misunderstanding. Hugo says no worries, she is just a child, as there's no need to explain the Morg's problem children education to him. Camus shouts to Hugo saying give her rubies back as because she can't do research as she doesn't have enough. Adolf doesn't get why is she saying that. Now Hugo is really mad and tells the girl to stop, enough is enough. Adolf gets scared and tells Hugo to calm down, as what does he plan on doing to a child? Then Van comes into the room. Adolf thinks this child must be that supernova of the Baskerville. Camus goes straight to Van. He recognized her as she is the famous Morg clan iron-blooded princess. Camus Morg was called the genius of geniuses, even in the Morg clan. In her peak, she killed all of the monsters and barbarians in the Nora Mountain by herself and burned them to death on spears, creating the famous border of blood and ashes. Plus, her beauty was captivating as she was able to manipulate Ed, the imperial family, therefore was called the fur goddess of authority. But that's in the future. Right now, she is just a child. She asks him why the ruby mine is his, not hers. Van tells her she came a long way just to throw a tantrum. She gets mad and tells Van, "Let me show you a hide. The ruby mine belonged to the Morgs, so that a stupid person like you can even understand." Van says that sounds fun. She creates an ice sculpture of their palace. Van is disappointed as he thought they were going to fight. She explains to him that the mine is situated on the border between Morg and Baskerville, which is called the Joint Security Area. The problem is that the entrance of the mine is on Morg territory, but the mines runs underneath the Baskerville family territory. The Baskerville family can't take the mine for themselves as the ruby minerals vein belongs to the Morg clan, but Baskerville are asserting that it's trespassing and interrupting the mine and also rejecting our offer to pay the rent for the territory. Adolf thinks this is a great point. She tells Van that rubies are used for magic ingredients, so the Baskerville family doesn't need the mine. Van tells her it must be tragedy for them, as there isn't an idiot in the Baskerville who would open up the land just to earn a few pennies from you guys. She tells Van that he just said that the Baskerville don't need the rubies. Van tells her that's right, they are only interested in their land. She tells Van that she will make him understand who has the possession over the ruby mineral mine. The left side is the Baskerville and the right side is Morg's. She puts her arm on the left and asks him whose arm is this. Van tells her she is asking whose arm it is that's in his land. He grabs her hand and tells her it's his, of course. She started blushing and tells him how can she be his stupid. Van tells her he did not say that you are mine, and takes out a dagger. Everyone is shocked to see this. He is saying that her arm is his with a sinister look on his face. Hugo is surprised to see this happening. Van was about to cut her hand. She shouts, "Help, uncle!" Adolf gets mad and tells Van to get away from his niece. Surprised by this, Van let go of her hand. She starts crying as he was about to cut his hand. Adolf asks Hugo what is going on here. Hugo tells Van that he has gone far with that joke. Van says sorry while he plays with the toy sword. Van immediately apologizes as he had no intention to make her cry. As in the Baskerville family, kids often play with toys like these from a young age. Adolf is still mad at Van for playing prank. Hugo tells him not to get overly involved in child play as he has some ideas regarding the ruby mines, which he is sure Morg would love to hear about it. Camus tells Van to better watch his back as she will take her revenge. Van just kept smiling at her. The friendly duels between the Baskerville's family and Morg's family begun. In this occasion where children ages between 8 to 15 gather and battle it out, while 8 years old challenge each other in theory or mana sensitivity. On the other hand, children around the age 15 get most attention with their live battles. However, this year everyone's attention is somewhere. The duel between Camus from the Morg clan and Van from the Baskerville clan. As requested by the Morgs, they will use practical rules and showcase a duel between the two geniuses. The bell rings and Camus casts a spell. Everyone is surprised to see this, as this is her infamous quadra casting. Adolf gets happy seeing Camus performing a spell which is even difficult for a 15-year-old. As she fires her spell, Van easily dodges her attacks, and tells her it would have been better if she would have focused on a single spell. She gets mad, tells him she doesn't care about that, and puts up a sand wall in front of her, but Van easily broke through the wall. Camus didn't expect him to break through the wall, and she closes her eyes as she opens them. Van flicks her on her head. Adolf didn't like that at all, and Hugo is loving this. She tells Van she will not let him get away with this. She puts 2 sand walls thinking he can't get through these layers. Van thinks what's the point, he can go around them, but he plays along and punches through them, and tells her whose arm just crossed the wall, and the answer is the stronger one as he flicks her head. She has a ball on her face and shoots a fire at him. Van thought she would give up if he hurt her like that, but thinks dealing with children is harder than he thought. Van could defeat her in 0.1 second, but that will cause an issue. He thinks he should let the others deal with this problem. He sees a mage who keeps shooting fire magic and the swordsman why keeps slicing magic would be helpful for him. The mage uses his advanced fire spell and fires it. Van waits for his chance, and as he was moving away from her, he tells Camus to have a defensive spell ready as the fireball is coming right at her. She doesn't have much time to think and gets caught in it. Everyone is worried as they took a direct hit. But Camus is sitting covering herself as her clothes were burned in the fire, and she is embarrassed if the smoke around her disappears, and the people will see her. She will be a laughingstock for everyone. Van comes to the rescue to gives her his jacket. She gets mad at him and asks him why is he helping the enemy. He tells her should he take his jacket back. She asks him he doesn't care about his body being exposed to everyone. Van tells her he doesn't care about that. She thinks, why is he caring about her? She tells him his arm is bleeding. Van thinks it must be from the swordsman. He might have some mana left in him. After the smokes clears, Adolf is relieved to see that she is fine. Everyone sees that Camus is on the ground, and they can't determine who won, but they amazed seeing the body of Van, and it must be thanks to the river Styx. Adolf takes Camus with him. The scene shifts to the hall where Hugo and Van are walking. Hugo asked Van about the battle with the lady of the Morgue clan. He says it was interesting as now he understands the purpose of this event. Hugo tells him the battle against Mage is different than the battle between the swordsmen. He asked Van why he didn't go for a clear blow. Van tells him he was confused about how to deal with a lady. Hugo tells him letting your guard down in battle will lead to injury. Take that injury as a lesson. Van is stunned to see Hugo caring about him, as during his youth he doesn't remember much about him. But he was always so cold, so strict, and so brutal. Rumors for his personality got so bad was because he lost his first wife and his eldest daughter. Well, that's not his problem. We comes to them. Hugo asked Van about what they should do with the ruby mines. He tells him that they should give it away. Hugo asked what's his reasoning for this, as the main task for the Baskerville clan is to grow their territories. As the Red All Mountain where ruby mine is located is the downstream from the Nora Mountain, the monsters and the barbarians there will become a problem for them. So they should let the Morgue clan to deal with them to minimize the losses during the expansion into that region. Hugo tells Van this is correct. Once the Morgue clan receives the control over the ruby mines, they will assign a great number of people there, and all they need to push the barbarians and the monsters into that region, and they will be able to care of all the problems at once. And if that happens, Morgue clan will think twice before entering your territory. Hugo pats Van's head as his idea was about 90% correct. As they were walking, Adolf comes in front of them and tells him he wants to talk to him before he returns. Camus is blushing behind him. They goes into the room and Hugo asks him what's the last thing he wants to talk about. Adolf tells him they have been thinking about peacefully resolve the issue regarding the ruby mines. Fees for its usage is one of the suggestions. Adolf asks him how about an engagement between the Morgue and the Baskerville children. Hugo asks him which child he have in his mind. Adolf tells him how about his eldest son of Baskervilles and the eldest daughter of the Morgues, which is his niece. She is an incredible child, as has looks and knowledge, she lacks nothing. Hugo tells him his eldest son is 25 this year. Are you aware about the age gap? It's a 17-year difference. Adolf tells him it's not a problem. Camus tells everyone that she will not marry anyone weaker than her mom. Adolf tells her for someone like Strong, she would have lived her entire life alone. Camus says it doesn't, this is her condition. Hugo tells her this is not a buffet of her choosing. Camus tells Hugo she knows, and she has no intention of playing around either. She looks at Van. Adolf tells her no, never, as he has the Van surname, which is not one of the Le descent. Hugo finds this oddly annoying. Hugo asked Van what are his thoughts about his engagement with her, as Camus watching him. Van says he will do it, if this is Hugo's order. Adolf didn't like that at all. Camus watched Van closely, her cheeks flushing with a mixture of hope and admiration. She couldn't help but wonder if Van was receptive to the unspoken feelings that lingered in the air. Beneath his confident facade, she sensed a hidden shyness that endeared him to her even more. Hugo's voice cut through the tension, diverting their attention. He dismissed the significance of names and titles within the illustrious Baskerville household. According to Hugo, the true measure of a person lay in their lineage. Lackluster individuals hailed from the Le descent, while greatness emanated from the Van lineage. Adolf, Camus's uncle, was visibly taken aback by this revelation. He approached Van with an air of familiarity, acknowledging him as a staunch supporter of his niece. However, Adolf cautioned Van against sharing certain information, implying that it might not be wise. Despite the warnings, Adolf emphasized the importance of ensuring that the right individual became Camus's husband. Van contemplated the engagement between the clans, viewing it as more of a suggestion than a heartfelt agreement. He found himself less than satisfied with the supposed genius of Baskerville. Adolf's scrutiny didn't escape Van's notice. The Morgue clan member, known as one of the strongest within his clan and a loyal supporter of Camus, examined Van's physique with interest. Adolf's sudden appearance surprised Van, who had been lost in thought. Camus's voice broke through his reverie, and Van confessed that he hadn't been paying attention since it was deemed unwise to share certain truths. Camus was thoroughly impressed by Van's boldness in front of her uncle, and Adolf's mischievous smirk hinted at a deeper intention. Adolf expressed his desire for a more profound conversation with Van, prompting Hugo to interject with skepticism. He questioned whether Adolf intended to scold an 8-year-old child. Adolf's response was unexpected. He viewed Van as a potential husband for his niece and emphasized that this request came not from the patriarch of the Morg clan, but from a concerned uncle. Camus, torn between her loyalty to Van and her uncle's wishes, tried to dissuade Adolf. But Adolf reassured her that this was an inevitable development and implored Hugo to grant him this opportunity. Hugo eventually relented, and the trio moved to an outdoor arena. Camus and Hugo watched from the sidelines as Adolf declared his intention to test Van's abilities thoroughly. Van, wary of revealing too much, cautioned Adolf that going all out might lead to him passing out. Adolf's response was a wry smile, and he introduced a unique handicap, an ordinary pot filled with water. Camus couldn't hide her shock at the unconventional choice. Adolf clarified the rules of their duel. Van had to face him with the pot on his head, and victory would be Van's if he managed to force a single drop of water to fall. Van realized that Adolf would be a formidable opponent even without this handicap. Still, he saw this as an opportunity to experience the true extent of Adolf's power, one of the reasons why Hugo had accepted Adolf's request in the first place. Adolf urged Van to give it his all, but Van believed that he only needed to meet Hugo's expectations. With determination, Van charged straight at Adolf. Camus, witnessing the reckless charge, couldn't help but warn Van about running straight at her uncle. To her surprise, Adolf summoned a shield that effortlessly blocked Van's attack. Van knew that piercing through this shield with conventional aura swords would be an arduous task. Adolf escalated the battle by creating a barrage of fireballs and launching them aggressively at Van. Camus grew increasingly frustrated, as she had never seen Adolf employ magic like this in their duels. Adolf questioned her loyalty, placing her in a precarious position. Van found himself challenged by Adolf's relentless attack, struggling to dodge the fiery onslaught. It became apparent that there was no need to intervene. The two combatants were locked in a fierce battle. At just 8 years old after his regression and with retained knowledge from his previous life, Van possessed a unique advantage. Wayne believed that Van could exploit these factors to catch Adolf off guard and potentially defeat him. With this intent in mind, Wayne charged toward the battle, swinging his sword against Adolf's shield. Adolf confidently stated that Van's sword couldn't break through his shield, but Wayne persisted, targeting a specific point on the shield. Adolf couldn't help but be impressed by Van's unwavering focus and exceptional swordsmanship skills. However, Wayne's swords ultimately broke, much to Adolf's satisfaction. Camus and Hugo were left stunned by this turn of events, and Hugo reflected on the importance of adapting one's strategy to the opponent. Adolf praised Van's talent but declared him too weak to support his niece. Then, unexpectedly, water began to drip from the pot on Adolf's head. Confused and bewildered, Adolf couldn't comprehend what had just transpired. It turned out that a piece of Van's broken sword had coincidentally pierced the pot, causing the water to leak. Van claimed victory, and Camus blushed at the thought of their future together. However, Hugo harbored a different perspective. To him, this victory was no coincidence. It appeared that Van was shaping up to be a much more formidable contender than he had initially expected. The narrative then shifted to a scene 7 years later at the Baskerville training grounds. Students engaged in combat against a giant bear monster, their instructor closely monitoring their progress. The instructor shared valuable tactics for facing a stronger opponent: step back, target the legs to slow it down, and then strike the vital points. The students were awed as 3 brothers efficiently dispatched the bear, defying their expectations. After the battle, the students gathered, marking the conclusion of their 7 years of training. They received congratulations on their graduation, and excitement filled the air as they contemplated their future paths. Among the various night orders within the Baskerville clan, each dedicated to specific objectives such as surveillance, search missions, guarding, assassination, suppression, and warfare, they wondered which order Van would choose. The narrative then transitioned to Van, who sat atop the defeated bear. He couldn't help but overhear the students discussing his achievements. He was already considered a sword expert and possessed 3 bear fangs. Van's thoughts turned inward as he contemplated his progress. Despite his hidden level now being that of a graduate intermediate rank in the Baskerville technique, compared to 7 years ago when he was a graduate low rank, his growth had been slower than anticipated. A butler interrupted his reverie, announcing that the patriarch was seeking his presence, suggesting that Van's assignment had already been decided. Van made his way to meet Hugo, who appeared noticeably older than before. Their conversation began with Van's curiosity about the scar on Hugo's nose, earned during a skirmish with barbarians on Nor Mountain. Van asked if they had been captured, but Hugo admitted they had not, though he proudly mentioned giving one of the archers a matching scar. Hugo congratulated Van on his graduation, hinting that the challenges were only going to intensify from here. Van suspected that Hugo was about to discuss his assignment. Prior to his regression, Van had become a junior knight of the Pitbull Order and had been dispatched to the Nora Mountain, where he faced non-stop peril for 21 months. He had been treated like an expendable, thrust into battle immediately upon reaching the age of 15. In the Baskerville Clan, children were categorized as either elite or expendable at the age of 15. The expendables faced death in battle, while the elite received education in politics and administration. Over time, experienced expendables became guards for the elites, who matured by practicing politics and administration. The fifth Baskerville technique had been developed to allow the elite to catch up to the expendables, given their extensive combat experience. This explained why Van's swordsmanship hadn't surpassed the fourth technique before his regression. Hugo's reluctance to allow an illegitimate child like Van to take an elite course was palpable. However, he surprised Van by suggesting that he try the lower house of parliament. Van was taken aback by this unexpected opportunity. The lower parliament played a crucial role in managing various aspects of the clan, including regional administration, legislature, law enforcement, business affairs, and more. Van was stunned that Hugo had allowed an illegitimate child like him to enter the elite course. Hugo justified his decision by highlighting Van's exceptional achievements. He revealed that Van would take on the role of Deputy Consul of Underdog City, a prestigious position usually reserved for elite members. Both the consul and deputy consul positions were currently vacant. Hugo asked Van if he was willing to accept this responsibility. Van agreed, respecting Hugo's decision. However, before proceeding, he had something important to discuss. Hugo was curious, and Van mentioned the incident involving the Morgue clan and the ruby mines. Hugo immediately understood, referring to how Van had outwitted Adolf. Van asked to borrow a promised reward once more. The butler, shocked by Van's audacity, anticipated Hugo's response. Van clarified that Hugo need not grant his request if it was too much. However, Hugo stamped the papers, agreeing to fulfill Van's request. He expressed trust in Van, believing that he would not act recklessly. As Van and the butler left the room, the butler noted that the patriarch treasured Van immensely, assigning him the role of a consul instead of dispatching him immediately into battle. The butler believed that Van would prove invaluable when the time came. Van acknowledged this potential but recognized that it would only come to fruition if he successfully managed his responsibilities as deputy consul. He viewed this as an opportunity to hone his skills and utilize his authority to greater effect. Despite his lack of interest in current events, he couldn't forget the memories of his previous life, including the sensation of his head rolling off the guillotine. He contemplated revenge against those who had wronged him, vowing to make Hugo experience a similar sensation. In the heart of the underdog territory, the air was heavy with anticipation. Workers diligently scrubbed away the grime that had clung to the walls and floors of their humble space. It was no ordinary day. News had circulated that a new deputy consul was en route, and the twist in the tale was that this deputy consul was rumored to be a mere 15 years old. As the elder among the workers barked orders for a more thorough cleaning, skepticism hung in the air like a thick fog. Who would entrust such a significant role to a child? The question seemed to be on everyone's mind. Then, breaking through the quiet chatter and the sound of scrubbing, a newcomer strode into the room. Two workers, puzzled by the unexpected guest, instinctively moved to block his path. Their hands firmly grasped his arms, intending to halt his progress. But the newcomer, who went by the name of Van, was not one to be trifled with. He shot them a withering glare and, with a stern voice, ordered them to remove their hands immediately. The workers, taken aback by the sudden turn of events, withdrew their hands in haste. The shock that rippled through the room was palpable when they realized that the young Van was, in fact, the newly appointed deputy consul. With an air of authority, Van wasted no time in issuing his commands. He instructed the workers to prepare for a grand celebration, demanding women and drinks without delay. It was clear that he intended to mark his arrival with a bang. The scene shifted swiftly to a lively party. Women and men mingled, clinking glasses, savoring sumptuous dishes, exchanging stories, and reveling in the festivities. Laughter and music filled the air as the night wore on. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit room overlooking the scene, a man named Bichir Baskerville, the general secretary of the underdog city, simmered with frustration. He watched the revelry unfold below with a mix of disbelief and anger. It was inconceivable to him that a newly appointed deputy consul would choose to indulge in such festivities on their very first day in office. Chihuahua muttered his discontent, referring to Van as a ridiculous guy who had been assigned to the prestigious role. He couldn't fathom what kind of troublemaker this young, untested kid might turn out to be. Van, wearing an intimidating aura like a cloak, approached Chihuahua from behind. Startled, Chihuahua spun around, only to find himself face to face with the enigmatic deputy consul. With an air of calm authority, Van inquired if Chihuahua was, indeed, the general secretary. Chihuahua, still reeling from the surprise, stammered out a response. As their introductions unfolded, it became evident that Van had observed a key detail. Chihuahua lacked a middle name, suggesting that he was not a blood member of the Baskerville family. Chihuahua, on his part, had endured years of discrimination from previous deputy consuls due to his outsider status. He was taken aback when Van's response to his lack of a middle name was a simple, "It's nice." It was an unexpected and welcome change. Van then dropped another bombshell, revealing that he had already perused Chihuahua's personal information. He confirmed that Chihuahua was born and raised in the underdog city, an insider who knew the intricacies of the place. Van assured him that he had no intention of meddling in Chihuahua's methods and expressed trust in his ability to carry out his duties effectively. Amidst these revelations, Chihuahua couldn't help but wonder if Van's presence at the party was part of some elaborate plan. He questioned the motive behind Van's unexpected arrival when he had initially asked for the celebration. As Chihuahua's musings continued, Van spoke up, addressing a deeper concern. He acknowledged that while the personal law system seemed sound, there were peculiarities within the judicial system that needed attention. Chihuahua, surprised to see that Van had already familiarized himself with these intricacies, listened intently. Van then delved into the core issue plaguing the underdog city, the thriving illegal businesses that operated with impunity. He pointed out that these underground enterprises held sway over the city, effectively making a mockery of the law. Simply shutting down illegal businesses wouldn't suffice. Van believed that the heads of these underground enterprises needed to be ousted. He emphasized the role of the deputy consul, tasked with making and executing laws. Van conveyed his respect for the existing laws but asserted his intent to introduce a new law, one aimed at dismantling the underground economy. Chihuahua was taken aback by the audacity of this plan. Van, however, had a condition. He declared his intention to plunge the underground economy into chaos within a week, but he needed a cause to justify and execute this law. When Chihuahua questioned the need for a cause to eliminate illegal businesses, Van likened it to laying bait for flies, a performance that would draw attention and make his actions more convincing. Chihuahua was left pondering what Van had in store. Little did he know that the next day would witness a display of audacity and leadership that would forever change the dynamics of the underdog city. The sun had barely risen when Van took to the bustling streets of Underdog City. His arrival was met with a buzz of conversation, and as word spread, curious residents gathered around. The notice of his appointment as deputy consul had not gone unnoticed. Beside Van stood a display of the laws that had governed the city for years. Observers couldn't help but notice the extensive list of laws, raising eyebrows and sparking discussions about the role of the higher-ups and potential lobbying efforts. Chihuahua, who had been simmering with anger, finally lost his patience. He sternly ordered the chatter to cease, reminding the onlookers that Van hailed from the prestigious Baskerville family. The crowd fell silent, but murmurs of dissent continued, with some questioning the legitimacy of a child carrying out the duties of a deputy consul. Then, in a dramatic and unexpected turn of events, Van raised his hand and, with a forceful strike, shattered the ground beneath him. A spear was driven halfway into the earth, and Van, rising to his feet, declared his intention to announce a new special law as the deputy consul. With bated breath, the crowd listened as Van proclaimed the first clause of Van's special law. Whoever could extract the spear from the ground would be rewarded with 100 million gold coins. A stunned hush fell over the assembly as disbelief rippled through the crowd. Could it be true? Was Van really offering such a sum, 4 times the average salary? Van's words hung in the air, met with skepticism and doubt. Some accused him of attempting to deceive them, and their accusations grew into a cacophony of shouts and protests. Chihuahua, who had managed to regain his composure, felt a sense of embarrassment wash over him. But Van wasn't finished. He increased the reward, first to 1 billion gold coins, then to 10 billion. The crowd's astonishment grew with each new offer. Yet despite the tantalizing sums, uncertainty and suspicion still prevailed. It was only when Van upped the reward to an astronomical 100 billion gold coins that the tide began to turn. Hesitation gave way to determination, and a sense of opportunity washed over the assembly. 10 billion was one thing, but 100 billion gold coins were an unimaginable fortune. Chihuahua, watching from the sidelines, was visibly embarrassed by the situation. He approached Van and confessed that the city simply did not possess such an astronomical sum. A young girl, her eyes filled with determination, raised her hand and offered to attempt the seemingly impossible task. The onlookers warned her against it, fearing that there must be a catch. Her mother's illness, however, compelled her to take the risk. She approached the stake, her small hands trembling as she prepared to make the attempt. With a deep breath and unwavering resolve, the young girl grasped the stake and, to everyone's astonishment, effortlessly extracted it from the ground. The crowd erupted into cheers, and the girl stood there, a mix of fear and hope in her eyes. Van, true to his word, approached her and handed over 100 million gold coins. The onlookers watched in awe as this unexpected turn of events unfolded. Van assured the girl that the remaining 100 billion gold coins would be delivered to her home. He even promised to provide a guard to protect her newfound wealth. The simple act of obeying the law and extracting the stake had earned the girl unimaginable riches. The citizens, touched by this display of generosity and fairness, couldn't believe their eyes. Van's words had weight, and he had proven that he intended to uphold the law to the fullest. In the days that followed, Van's special law became a sensation, surpassing even the self-governance law of the Baskerville Clan in terms of fame. It offered a clear and compelling message: obey the law, and you shall be rewarded. Disobey, and there will be consequences. The city began to transform as unlawful activities dwindled and crime rates plummeted. Van had made his mark, not through fear, but through principled leadership and unwavering commitment to justice. Back in his office, Van contemplated the aftermath of his audacious performance. Chihuahua, still in awe of what had transpired, expressed his admiration for Van's daring act. He confessed that, in his 2 decades of service, he had never been so moved. Van, however, knew that the challenges had only just begun. Retrieving the promised 100 billion gold coins would prove to be a monumental task. The city's illegal groups and potential hideouts were now on their radar, and Van intended to locate these pockets of crime and confiscate their ill-gotten gains. But Van's actions had also stirred the hornet's nest. The Youth Autonomy Association, a group with ties to the Manhwa clan and a history intertwined with the Baskerville family, had requested a meeting. Their discontent and intentions remained shrouded in mystery, but Van sensed that a confrontation was inevitable. In the opulent setting of a club within an underdog city hotel, the members of the Youth Autonomy Association gathered. In a dimly lit room, the atmosphere was tense as the 7 key members convened. These individuals, who represented the native Baskerville family, were known for their promiscuous social club. As they indulged in their festivities, their concerns about Van's new law loomed large. They believed it was time to address the issue head-on as the winds of change blew through the underdog city. The waiter entered the room with a hint of excitement in his voice, announcing the arrival of the girls. He ushered them in, and amongst the group was a man named Van. The ladies insisted that the waiter kick out this seemingly young interloper, mistaking him for a mere child. The waiter, perhaps a bit too confident, reached out and grabbed Van's hair. In the blink of an eye, Van reacted swiftly, wrenching his hand free from the waiter's grip and stepping forward. With an air of authority, he declared himself as the new deputy consul, Van Baskerville. This revelation left everyone in the room taken aback, their initial assumptions shattered. Conversation buzzed through the group as they contemplated a clever idea, making Van foot the entire bill for their gathering. However, Van had other plans. He slammed his hand onto the table, releasing a surge of mysterious power that shattered all the glasses, sending shards flying toward their faces. Shocked and unable to retaliate, they soon realized that Van was no ordinary guest. He was a formidable graduate of some unknown power. In a desperate bid to appease Van, one of the men spoke up, claiming they had only intended to test him as the vice-consul. They acknowledged his worthiness to lead them and pledged their allegiance. Van, though, wasn't easily swayed. He delivered a powerful punch to the man's stomach, sending him sprawling to the ground. With a fierce gaze, Van chastised the group, explaining that their apparent fearlessness stemmed from their wealth and influence. He warned them that they had yet to experience true terror. With a firm hand, he threw the man to the ground and demanded the others explain themselves. If they failed to provide a satisfactory answer, they would share the same fate. Fearful and intimidated, the group quickly conceded, assuring Van that they understood. However, Van wasn't satisfied with mere words. He informed them that they all deserved a good beating for their actions. As they began to gang up against him, Van moved with astonishing speed, positioning himself in front of them once more. In a stern tone, he accused them of kidnapping and slave trading, crimes that had earned his contempt for the Baskerville clan. Their time for reckoning had come, and Van was determined to deliver the punishment they deserved. In a swift and powerful display of his abilities, Van took care of all of them simultaneously, ensuring that justice was served.